at the end there mentioned regular Sunday walks. So it's not really happening right now because of COVID purposes, but that video was made before. So, all right. So I'll throw it over back to Nicole and she'll just remind everybody again about the recording.
Yeah, perfect. So just to let everyone know, for anyone who just joined us, we are recording this and we will be putting it on YouTube later, as well as going live on Facebook, just so all our members can enjoy these events. So if anyone's uncomfortable with having their face on screen, we completely understand. We want to respect your privacy. So definitely feel free to turn your video off if you want. If you're confused how to do that, all you do is on the left-hand side of your computer screen at the very bottom, if you kind of maybe move your mouse around a little bit, there's a mute and a stop video. So you just press stop video and mute as well. And that'll do it for you guys. But again, it's totally up to you guys. So yeah, so welcome everyone. For those that missed my little introduction, I'm Nicole Preisel. I am the Digital Communications Coordinator here at Wildbird Trust. And I want to welcome you all here to this amazing workshop led by Kate McKeown. Thank you so much, Kate. Before we get into it, I just want to acknowledge that the Wildbird Trust is located on the unceded, ancestral, and traditional territories of the Tsleil-Waututh peoples. And it's important for us to acknowledge that and to continue to be dedicated to reconciliation and redress, and to forge a new and strong relationship with the Tsleil-Waututh Nation. I myself am Stalo from Lackamal First Nation, as well as mixed settler Canadian descent. And so I am very honored to be coming to you from the unceded lands of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples as well. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to introduce you guys to Kate. So I'm going to read an introduction. So Kate McKeown is the coordinator for the BC Parks iNaturalist project. After graduating from UVic with a Bachelor in Science in Forest Biology, she worked to survey biodiversity of BC parks while working on the BC iNaturalist project. She sells her nature photography with 50% of the profits donated to local conservation initiatives. Kate is also a new volunteer with us at the Wildbird Trust as of this past October. And she's a great example of one of the many ways that you can contribute your time as a volunteer with the Wildbird Trust by sharing your specialized skills and knowledge in events and workshops like this one. So thank you so much, Kate. Welcome. I'm so excited to learn. Yay! And without further ado, we will pass it off to you, and just let us know if you need any technical assistance, okay?
Yeah, thank you very much, Nicole, for that introduction. That was very, very kind of you. I know Marissa did a lot of prep in getting all of this ready too, so thank you to you both. I guess I will just head over to my presentation, and hopefully it works to share my screen. Can everybody see that?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. Perfect. Well, thank you all for coming. Really excited to see there's so much interest in learning about iNaturalist. It's a pretty great resource. I obviously am a big fan, and I'm glad that you all are so interested in learning about it as well. So yeah, we'll just get right on into it. So for those of you who don't know, iNaturalist is a biodiversity database and social media app. It's free and it's used by people all over the globe. Its main use is you can upload your photos of wild species, whether that's plants, animals, fungi, lichens, anything that is wild and living. And then other people on the platform will come in and either confirm your identification of your species or help set you on the right track if you weren't able to correctly identify it. It's a great way to learn to identify species that you may not be familiar with. And it's also a great way to record all of the species that you've seen all in one place. So I thought we would just go straight to iNaturalist and look at some of the different features on the website. Hopefully this continues to just share my screen. Can you all see this as I'm transferring from PowerPoint to Chrome?
Yeah, we see the iNaturalist page.
Perfect. Thanks. All right, so when you first log in, this is the page that you'll see. As I said, it's a free app if you don't have an account.
Maybe not. I think we still see your PowerPoint then.
Okay.
You might have to switch.
New share and
yeah.
How about now?
That's perfect. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Gotta switch that. Yeah. So as I was saying, this is your homepage. It's very similar to other social media homepages. Here is where you'll see, it's the news feed equivalent if you're familiar with Facebook. All of the updates from other users that you're following or other locations that you're following. Like I see updates from the University of Victoria. From here, you can easily navigate to your profile, your observations, etc. All of these features are pretty easy to work your way around to. So I thought we would just concentrate on these top tabs up here, starting with the Explore tab. So once this loads, there we go. All right, so my iNaturalist account is automatically set up to just look at the species in British Columbia, but what your screen might look like is this instead. So immediately when you go to the Explore page, it will show you an overwhelming amount of data that users have collected from all over the globe. So 1 million observations have been made of over 314,000 species. These have been made by 1.4 million observers, and 173,000 people have helped to identify those observations. The map here, you can zoom out. Oh, my connection's being slow. There we go. Yeah, as you can see, the app has pretty much been used in every corner of the world, so to speak. And here you'll see the most recently uploaded observations. So since we're a bunch of bird enthusiasts, presumably, since you all are joining through Wild Bird Trust, let's look at this white-winged dove. So this is the user, and here you can see when they observed the species and when they submitted their observation to iNaturalist. In this case, that happened all today. Here you can see a map and the location where the species was seen. And so we're in Mexico. And if you scroll down, you might see notes about the observation. You'll also see this is how the user identified the observation. And then another user came in and agreed, said, yes, this is the white-winged dove. And so because of that, this observation has become research grade, which is then considered a higher level of data. If this had still been sitting with only one observation, it would have a yellow flag here that says needs ID, and that would stay that way until somebody else came and confirmed the observation. What are other features from the Explore page? So I showed you how you can just look at the observations most recently made right here, but that's not always the most efficient way to look for data or to explore what might be around. So you can search by species, genus, family in this bar, or you can search by location. And if that's still too generic, if you're looking for a more specific way to search, you can go to the filters tab here. And there's kind of an endless way of different filters you can use to search for data. You can look at just those higher quality data, the research grade ones, which I mentioned, that white-winged? No, I've forgotten the name of the dove already. But when two people have agreed on the observations, it'll become research grade. You can also search by threatened species, by introduced species, or go through different types of taxa. You can also search by the date that the species was observed, or if you go and click more filters, you can also search by a username, a different project, or the date added. So there's really kind of endless possibilities to refine that data to use it in a way that is of use to you. So now I'm going to move on to your observations. So if you're an iNaturalist user, or when you become one, all of your observations will appear under this tab. It's very similar to the Explore tab that we just looked at. The only difference is that now, instead of looking at the observations of 1.4 million observers, we're just looking at one person's observations, excuse me. So here, again, I have the ability to search for different species in different locations, use all of those same filters that we looked at, but it's only pertaining to my data. So if I move on to community, this tab, let's see. So this is a good way to find new users. This is kind of the social media side of things. You can follow other users if you so choose, if you want to see their observations more readily. That's one aspect of iNaturalist. Another way you can search is by projects. So if you go to this projects page, you'll see the projects that are featured in iNaturalist Canada. For example, Ontario Parks, Parks Canada. This is the BC Parks project here that I'm a part of and that we will talk about a little bit later. This is the Canadian Wildlife Federation's project. And then you can also see recently active projects. So again, if you're just browsing and looking to learn about an area that maybe you weren't familiar with, that's a good way to do it. What I'm going to do now is we're just going to navigate to the Maplewood Flats project and have a look at that. So here we got the Maplewood Flats Conservation Area project. Here you'll see a little bit of information about the project. And as you start to scroll down, you'll see those same tabs, the number of observations, 1,700, the number of species, 426, number of identifiers that have helped to identify those observations, and 123 people have observed species in this area. So keep scrolling down, see the recent observations, and then the leaderboards with the most observations, most species, and the most observed species. So mule deer have been seen more than any other species in the park, which is interesting, since I know there's some resident deer that live kind of on or near the property. It could be that they're the same ones that are being seen again and again. But then spotted towhee, black-capped chickadee, great blue heron, kind of makes sense that most of the the top observed species would be birds in an important bird area. Here you'll see, so we were talking about research grade observations versus observations that need identification. About 75% of the observations in this project are research grade, which is great. It means you can be fairly confident that those species are identified correctly, and the percentage of them could still use ID. Casual observations are those that people upload without a photo or without any way of confirming the identification. So we don't recommend doing that. It's always better if you can provide some evidence for your observation. And finally, here near the bottom, this is a map of Maplewood Flats Conservation Area. If you zoom in, you'll see these are all of the observations, most of which follow the main trail networks throughout the area. And you could always click on one, see what's there. But again, if we scroll back up and go to observations, the easier way to filter the data is to go from observations to search. And then you're taken back to this familiar page where you can use filters to search through the data. The only difference here is that it's automatically plugged in Maplewood-Flats-Conservation-Area into the project. So all of the observations you're looking at are only the ones that have been captured in the conservation area. And don't think we need to look at these. Journal posts is essentially the blog side of iNaturalist. Some people share experiences or
Sorry, Kate. Sorry to interrupt, but we just had a question. I figure it'd be best to answer it here. Is someone asked, what do the different colors in the points on the map represent?
Yeah, for sure. Good question. It's different types of taxa. I believe the blue are the blue birds, and then red might be insects. Purple might be, I don't know, blue mammals. How do we do this? Oh, now it's got me all confused. I don't usually look at the maps too closely, but now you've got me curious. So yeah, it seems, I think maybe blue.
Yeah, I think
all
it's
animals?
yeah, I think it's like pink is plants or vegetation, and then blue maybe animals. Oh, okay, well, on green and it's also plants. So
Yeah.
I
I
can
was
look
like-
up the thing really quick if you want, just so we can make sure.
I thought it was always red was insects. I guess blue I thought maybe was birds or mammals, but I think it's the animal kingdom, and then green is plants.
Yeah. And then
It's
common St. John's wort, and then
yeah.
pink would be like fungi and mosses.
And then I don't know. Oh, we've got
Black and an orange.
oh, unknown.
Oh,
okay.
unknown.
So that makes sense.
Very cool. Well, we're learning as we go.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
Oh, perfect. Thank you to whoever asked that. All right. Oh, yeah. So, right. So I was talking about journal posts, and then the forum is where you go if you're kind of searching for the frequently asked questions, or if you've encountered kind of a bug issue, you can search the bug forum. And if nobody else has had the same issue that you have, you can post about it, and then someone who works for iNaturalist will usually get back to you within a day or two. They're quite quick at responding, which is great. Finally, we will look at the identification tab. So, as I was saying, with the Maplewood Flats Conservation Area project, there are still some observations that could use an identification to make them research grade, easily done through going to this Identify tab. The project, if you are only interested in identifying things in the Maplewood Flats area, or again, use any of these filters if you're a birder and you're great at identifying birds, maybe you'd want to search this category, and then the easiest way to do this is to click on them, although from afar we could probably tell that this is a varied thrush. You'll see it says here that it needs identification. This shows you a map of where it is. And if you click on this suggestions tab, it'll show you species that are similar to the species, which in the case of the varied thrush, there isn't really anything that looks like it in this area, so it makes it a pretty easy identification. But if it was, maybe an inconspicuous plant, then there might be a few suggestions. And yeah, you'd have to do a bit of digging if you weren't sure exactly what you were looking at. But since I'm very confident that I'm looking at a varied thrush, I'm going to agree. And you'll see this will turn to research grade right there because two of us have agreed on the same identification. All right, I'm gonna navigate back to my PowerPoint. Hopefully that has worked for everybody.
Yeah, we see your PowerPoint.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out, I was like, my video disappeared too. All the technical difficulties. There we go.
Zoom is a complicated app to use.
Yeah. Apparently I haven't had enough practice after all these months. All right, there we go. All right, so iNaturalist projects, as I said, they're kind of a great way to catalog all of the species in the area. We looked at the Maplewood Flats Conservation Area project, and there are many other projects to explore. Another one being the BC Parks INAT project, which is quite huge. As you can see, there's over 250,000 observations, over 6,700 species, and a lot of people have been involved in making those observations happen. So that's been very cool. So we've been really just looking at how to use iNaturalist on the desktop, but there is a app that you can download from the App Store just called iNaturalist, which works as well. There's kind of pros and cons to using either the app or the website, and I'll just give you a quick rundown of those. So the phone app is great if you are in the field and you want kind of an immediate feedback about what you're seeing. That way you could take a photo, upload it to iNaturalist using Wi-Fi or data, and then it would, the computer vision software that iNaturalist uses would automatically look at your photo and give you a suggestion as to what you're looking at. Of course, the downside to this is it means you either need to have Wi-Fi in the field, which is quite a rarity, or you're using data, which is not great. But if there is something that you're looking at and you're seeing it everywhere and you immediately want to know what it is, it might be worth switching on that data just for a minute to look at that species. Another benefit of using the phone is that when you're taking photos on your phone, they are pretty easily geotagged. This is as long as the location services on your phone are turned to on for the camera. If they're not turned on, your photo won't be geotagged. And the smartphone is also good for uploading a small number of photos as observations. You kind of have to, click upload an observation, just complete one observation, and then wait for it to upload before you can move on to another one, or you just have them sitting there backing up on your phone. So I'm personally not a fan of uploading them this way, but if you're uploading 5 to 10 observations, it shouldn't take you too long to do it. Now looking at the desktop, it's much easier to filter data looking at different projects, users, species using the desktop. You can't really use the smartphone app to filter data this way. Unfortunately, if you're uploading the photos from your desktop, it usually means you either had to transfer them from your phone, so there's that extra step, or if you have a DSLR which doesn't have GPS like mine, then you need some kind of external app to geotag your photos. I use this app here, Geotag Photos Pro 2, and all I have to do is start a track before I start going out and taking photos, stop the track when I finish, and then I upload that track to my computer and geotag the photos on my computer before uploading them. So there is that extra step, but when you're geotagging a lot of photos, it seems to be worth it to do it this way. And yeah, as I mentioned, much easier to upload photos using the desktop. I have put several hundred photos into iNaturalist at one time and just gone through them really quickly this way. And so I'm sorry this is going to be so difficult with screen sharing, but I'm bouncing us back to iNaturalist. All right, hopefully, can you all see this now?
Yeah,
Yep, we can see it.
Thanks, Nicole. And now that I've been talking about it, I'm going to show you how to do an upload. So this upload button, the green button in the right-hand corner here, just click on that. And choose files, or you can drag and drop them. And I have mine queued. Ah, there they are. Perfect. Okay, so as you can see, I've already got the date and time and the location attached to these photos. I click the location here, it'll show me where all of these were taken on the Maplewood Flats grounds. If I didn't have this geotagged, I could search for the location, Maplewood Flats observation area, pops up there, and it automatically spits you out there. So I know I didn't take the photos in the parking lot, so I could drag this big circle, drag it over here. And although that's not quite as useful, since the geotag point is a lot bigger, a lot less precise, this still provides some information, and it's a good way to tag your photos if you don't have that super precise location. But I'm just going to cancel this so it goes back to its data point. Now, can anybody tell me what this species is?
Holly?
You're correct, Nicole. So if I click here, iNaturalist uses its computer vision, and it hasn't got the species, but it has guessed what the genus is. Now, if I had no idea what this was, what I was looking at, other than it was a plant, this might give me a pretty good indication that it is, in fact, a holly, because 3 out of the top 4 suggestions are for different species of holly. Since we know this one is European holly, I'm just going to click that, and then we will move on. This, I am pretty confident, is Herb Robert. So let's see what iNaturalist thinks it is. So it puts it in the correct genus. It guesses that it's in the genus Geranium. Again, it gives me a few, I guess just a couple of geranium options here. But I'll select that one. This fungus here, I'm pretty confident is orange jelly spot. And so I don't think iNaturalist is going to get this one. No. So here it gives me several options, all different fungi. But what might help you narrow down your choices here is that although all of these say that they're visually similar, only some of them are seen nearby. I know this isn't the case with witch's butter because I know that it is present around these areas, but sometimes what iNaturalist will do is just give you a species that looks similar, but for example, could only be found in Asia across the world. And so when you see that a suggested species has been seen nearby, it kind of gives you a better indication that this might be what you're looking at. Again, if you have no confidence in your identification, you could always just type in fungi and leave the species, or sorry, leave the observation at the kingdom level. That is totally fine as well. But I'm just going to input it there. And all right, I put in a few birds to see if anybody wanted to try to identify. Does anyone have any guesses? Does anyone want to guess? If not, that's okay too.
Fiona in the comments said a Cooper's hawk.
I think that it's a red-tailed hawk, but if
That's a close guess.
it is a very close guess, you got hawk, and that is
Nice.
great. Because yeah, iNaturalist does the same. It takes it to the genus Buteo, hawks, and it gives you, I imagine, oh no, I'm surprised Cooper's hawk isn't there. But red-tailed hawk, broad-winged hawk, all these different hawks. So I could always leave it at the genus Buteo, and there are so many birders on iNaturalist that birds get identified very, very quickly. So I might just put it to genus, and then it's possible that by the end of this call, someone will have identified it. I'll check back right before we finish. And finally here is a very blurry picture of a red-breasted nuthatch. So I put this in here because there's a lot of times that people will, say, oh, a photo like this is useless. There's no point in keeping it. But if it's the only photo you have of a species and it has enough of the characteristics that you need to identify it, iNaturalist can still figure out what you're looking at. Again, it got the right genus. Red-breasted nuthatch is the only one of the nuthatches that has been seen nearby. So that helps to narrow it down. So that would be my selection. Fortunately, I got one more chance to photograph it in a clear, with a clear photo. So of course, clear photos are always preferable, but if you only have one, and there have been many times I've been in the field and this is the only photo I get, that's always better than nothing. So I'm just going to remove that. We will identify that one and submit 5 observations. And there we go. You can see the observations I just added. They all need identification. And usually this is a bit more zoomed in. but it should be showing me where these were taken. I guess because I'm on my observations page, it's now showing me all of the observations I have taken, but the most recent ones are all taken in Maplewood Flats. So for the last time, I'm going to switch back to my PowerPoint presentation. And
Jasmine in the comments just brought up a really good point, and she says that it looks like on that page where you do the submissions, or you can see your submissions, that's where the colored tags are shown. So blue animals, red is fungi, and green is plants. So thank you, Jasmine. I appreciate that. And yeah, that was really helpful.
Yeah, great
Good spot, because I didn't catch it.
Oxide.
Nice.
Oh, what was that?
She had a hawkeye.
Oh,
Yes.
that's very relevant. I like it.
I love that.
Okay, so now we've talked a little bit about what it is, how to use it. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about why you might want to use it. So iNaturalist, as I said, is a great way to learn to identify species that you may not be aware of. I know I definitely, up until a few years ago, had species blindness, where I would just go on a walk and not pay any attention to all the trees and plants and bugs that I was walking past. And so if you kind of stop to slow down, and if you're interested in learning, there are so many species that we see in our everyday lives. iNaturalist is also a great way to create an interactive record of your observations. So this here is a map of my observations in BC. And it's kind of a fun way to see, oh, what plants am I seeing in the northernmost extent of where I've traveled, or up against the Rocky Mountains, what am I seeing there? So it's just a different way to look at your photographs. It's also a great way to help others by identifying their observations. It's a great way to learn. I know in the past I have tried to identify something and people say, no, you're wrong, it's this, and that is a very good way to learn how to identify different taxa. And a lot of the times when people are correcting you, they'll tell you, no, it's this because of this, this, and this. And then that will forever stick in your mind when you're looking to identify it the next time. Also, iNaturalist is somewhere to organize all of your nature photos. I find this really handy when I know I saw something cool on this trip that I took, in this date range. Then I can go search by the date observed and find the species that way, instead of spending hours scrolling through photos. And finally, iNaturalist helps us improve our understanding of biodiversity. There's so many ecologists that really appreciate more people using this tool, and more people in BC Parks Management are looking at what's being observed in their parks and using that to make management decisions. A few of the biodiversity uses of iNaturalist include documenting range expansions, detecting threatened species, monitoring diseases and if they're spreading, documenting the spread of invasive species, and documenting locations of introduced species. And finally, it's a great way to complement species inventories. For example, if you're doing a BioBlitz one day of the month, iNaturalist data can help fill in what's present, the other 29 or so days of the month when you're not actively looking for different species. So a little bit about the BC Parks iNat project. I know I showed you that one slide with the observation, observer, species, and identifier totals. As I said, it's a very large project and encompasses a very big portion of BC. The project has two goals. One is to provide baseline surveys of the 1,033 provincial protected areas in the province. And the second is to enhance outreach and engagement and get more people interested in what they're walking through and beside when they're in BC parks. So a bit of background to this project. It was started in 2019 by Brian Starzonsky from the University of Victoria and John Reynolds from Simon Fraser University in partnership with BC Parks and the BC Parks Foundation. And for the last 2 summers, field assistants have traveled the province and bio-blitzed as many BC parks as they possibly could in their field season. So I think in 2019, they were able to visit about 100 protected areas. And in 2020, we visited roughly 65. This map on the right is actually showing all the places where we took observations in 2020. And we're hoping to go northward in 2021. COVID permitting, we're allowed to travel north. So for many reasons, we're hopeful that we'll all get some good news soon. There have been several rare discoveries made through the iNat project. I just have a couple examples here. And one is this brown spotted range grasshopper, which is red listed as imperiled in British Columbia. And it was seen in both 2019 and 2020 in this one ecological reserve in the Okanagan. And it was really promising to see so many different individuals in both years, suggesting that this population is hopefully relatively healthy, coming back in the same numbers each year. Another interesting find is this crab eye lichen. This lichen is critically imperiled in the country. And this photo here is from an observation made by Ben Sabal, a BC Parks ranger. And it's actually the only observation of this species on all of iNaturalist. So that's not to say it's the only organism on the entire surface of the Earth, but it must be a pretty unique species given that it has only been observed once. And finally, how you can contribute. So as we were talking about iNaturalist and taking photos and slowing down and looking at the species around you, maybe try next time you're in a park, if you're not usually somebody that takes photos, try to take 3 or 5 photos of different species when you're there. And that is likely to, I don't know, if you're like me, it'll get you excited about using iNaturalist once you get that feedback coming in from people, engaging with your observations and letting you know, and maybe leaving you a comment. And for this to work, however, you have to be sure to geotag your observations so they get captured by the project. Another way to help is to identify observations on iNaturalist that need ID. From that Identify tab that we looked at briefly, you can filter by the BC Parks Project or the Maplewood Flats Project if you're interested in just identifying some in a specific area. And finally, spread the word to other nature enthusiasts that might be interested in the project. The photo in the top right here is our field crew from 2020. So there was only 4 of us traveling these parks, and so much more ground can be covered and so many more things can be seen if there are more people out there taking photos. So yeah, that is essentially it. I've left a few links to resources. That's just to the BC Parks iNat project. You could also find it by searching BC Parks on the top of the iNaturalist page. This BC Parks Foundation how-to guide is essentially just how to use iNaturalist, which is mainly it. I think it covers pretty much everything we covered today, but I can also add that to the chat. And finally, if anybody has follow-up questions after today, my email is katemckeown3@gmail.com. So yeah, thank you all for coming. Does anybody have questions?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kate. That was so good. I really appreciated that.
Thanks.
I have one question, and it's kind of related to a question that was just asked. Like for me personally, I'm not like a professional photographer, and I've used iNaturalist in the past, and this presentation makes me really excited to use it again. But for me, most of my photos are just focused on species that won't run away from me. So is that are those kinds of photos still useful, or to the database?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think plants almost always make up the majority of photos taken in BC parks. That's why it's exciting to see that Maplewood Flats has like mainly bird species, because that's pretty rare, I think, unless maybe you're in an important bird area. I haven't really looked too closely at the other ones. But yeah, any species, that's why we say lichen, fungi, like things you would never think to look at. My coworker in the summer got really into taking photos of mosquitoes, and then he had some firsts for iNaturalist because nobody wants to photograph mosquitoes and just sit there getting bit. But he took one for the team, and yeah, so anything that you can take photos of that'll always be appreciated on iNat.
I'm gonna check the Facebook Live and see if there's any questions on there. Do you want to just?
Yeah, I'll check this Zoom one, the Zoom chat. Yeah, I was just gonna say the spotted or the brown spotted grasshopper. I think my friend actually has a photo of one of them from the Okanagan this summer. So like as soon as you put it up, I was like, oh, I recognize that because it was such a detailed photo that she took. But I'll have to ask her, and maybe she can also upload it if it is.
Yeah, that would be very cool, because yeah, on the slide there, I think if it's the same as the last time I checked, there were only 18 observations of that species in all of BC. So getting one more is, a big percentage. So that would be very cool if that's what your friend saw.
Definitely. Yeah, she's great at taking, I should tell her about this app. She might already know about it, but she's great at taking bug photos. So I think that will be, yeah, she loves them. Everything. Like, ooh, she's out there getting them.
No, we love it. That's great.
There's one question in the chat from Tiffany, and she says, is there a way to geotag photos onto like a camera if you don't have a smartphone?
So that would be if you get one of those apps, like the one that I mentioned, the Geotag Photos Pro 2. There's a bunch of other geotagging apps. I just know for a fact that this one works. And that way, if you're uploading old photos that are not geotagged, then what you can do is kind of select all the photos you have in the upload tab, and then click location, and then you can just type in the location or zoom in to find it, and then kind of make that bigger circle in the approximate area where you found them.
Very cool. Nice. We have one from Fiona McDonald. Can you add photos from any time? I have many from years past that I'd love to add, but not sure if they're relevant anymore.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think at least when I've been searching for data, I think iNat will accept photos back to like 1920. So I doubt Fiona was taking photos before 1920, but just in case you were, up until 1920, I think you're safe. Yeah, all the data is appreciated, and people will still possibly be looking to use it. It's crazy the things that, some things like a lily. I found a dried up dead lily, and somebody from a university in California contacted me saying she was describing a new species of lily. Could she use my photos in her paper because they show the seed and she needs this specific feature of the seed? And I was like, sure, but who would have thought, right?
That's wild. That's
Yeah,
crazy. That's so cool.
it's very cool, the types of people that like there's so many ecologists using iNat, and it's very cool.
That's awesome. Cool. Maybe we'll just ask 2 more questions if that's cool with everyone, because I don't want to take up everyone's time too much. We're about 6 minutes to 8. So let's see. I'm just gonna scroll up a little bit. So Tiffany asks, a BioBlitz is a communal citizen. Oh no, she's answering a question, I think, because I think someone had a question about the BioBlitz. Maybe I can go find that.
Sorry, I'm bad at watching the chat. I go look at it.
No, it's all good. I love doing it. I need glasses basically. So I'm definitely struggling a little bit.
It was just Christy. She asked to explain what a BioBlitz entails.
Got it. Perfect. Oh, I love when people answer each other's questions in the chat. That's awesome. And if anyone has any questions they want to ask out loud, definitely just unmute yourself and feel free to ask them. Everyone's welcome here. You know, it's a safe space. So cool. Okay, I'm just looking at the questions.
I have a question myself, if I could ask it.
Yeah.
It kind of relates to Justine's question that she just asked about does the exact latitude and longitude, if we don't have the exact latitude and longitude, can it still be considered research grade? And I was also wondering, kind of paired with that question myself, is wondering, like, what kind of studies do citizen science projects like this inform? Because it seems like there can be some biases in the types of photos people upload. Like if we, for example, just look at the Maplewood Flats project, the top observation is the black-tailed deer.
Yeah.
Safe to say it's not like the species with the most abundance on site. So just wondering, like, what kind of what that kind of data gives to different types of studies.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sorry, I forgot the first half of the question, so I'll answer yours, Marissa, first. But basically, all this is doing is providing presence-absence data. It's not really quantitative because, as we said, I don't really think there are, oh gosh, what was it, 50 some deer or so that reside in the Maplewood Flats area. That's probably more likely 5 that have been seen many times. And an easy way to kind of figure that out is if if there's 5 observations taken one day of this deer, then there's a good chance that's just the same deer on the property. But when you can't be certain of that, yeah, the data is mainly used in just a presence absence kind of a way. And so BC Parks management people are kind of interested in just knowing how many species are we protecting by having this protected area, rather than, how many grasshoppers, how many of, ponderosa pine, that kind of thing. It's more of just let's have a look at everything, like how many species can we find here? And we know that we're only finding a fraction because there's so many microscopic species and other things that, may only pass through one day of the year, and if you're not there, you'll miss it. So
cool.
Very cool. Maybe I'll just ask one last question, and this is from Justine. If you don't have the exact latitude or longitude, can it be considered research grade?
Right, that was the first half of the question. Thank you. Yes, it can. I think, and that's actually something that when you upload a species at risk, it will automatically obscure the observation. So people aren't just interested in the super precise location. Sometimes that's useful, like, for example, with holly, I know Marissa and the team are working to kind of remove some of these invasive species. So you might want really precise data, but also in the terms of just presence absence, we just want to know what's in the park, not the exact location where it can be found. And sometimes if it's something like a rare bird's nest, you may not want to put the exact location. You may want to kind of, obscure the data yourself a little bit.
That's a good point.
Cool. Thank you.
I just want to share information about our volunteer orientation on Saturday.
Yeah, perfect.
So the other thing, actually, I wanted to ask, there's another app, is it related to iNaturalist, called Seek?
Yes.
Do you want to kind of make a comment on that one?
Yeah,
About the difference?
actually, I've only looked at Seek very briefly. It's kind of the kid-friendly iNaturalist. Um, so if you're a teacher and you want to get kids into looking at biodiversity around them, they can put photos on Seek, and those photos are not actually stored. So this is important because if kids are taking photos of their friends' faces, we don't really want those to be out in the world for everyone to see. So it's a way for, I think maybe the information is only visible to them, or maybe it just kind of disappears. I'm not too sure. I haven't experimented with it much. But yeah, it's more kid friendly that way. And I think it suggests species that are near to you. So it can be useful in that way as well. If you just want to know what species are around, it can kind of give you suggestions.
Cool. Thank you for that. I just wanted to make a distinction because I saw that in the summer and I just didn't really know what the difference was. But yeah. But thank you, Kate. And just before we all go, I just wanted to share. So if you could stop sharing your screen for a second. Actually, I don't know. Am I co-host, Nicole?
Yes, you should be able to share your screen. Cool. Yeah, we have a winter volunteer orientation coming up, whereas I'll talk a little bit right about it now.
Yeah, so if you guys would like to learn more about the Wild Bird Trust or become a volunteer, either of those things, I'll be conducting this winter volunteer orientation on Saturday, this Saturday at 11 a.m. And I'll just be going over a bit of the history of the site, the colonial history of the site. It's gone through a lot, so it's a way for us to kind of acknowledge that. And then we'll also go over a lot of the volunteer program and all the positions that we are trying to get started in COVID. It's a bit complicated, but there's a few positions that are more active than others, and we'd love for more people to join with us. So
yeah, and I see that Fiona is going to be there, so that's awesome. Fiona, we'll see you there. That's
great.
so cool. And Mary Lyle was a part of it. I'm not sure if she's still here or not, but Mary Lyle is also a volunteer, and she just helped me set up our entire annual photography exhibit. So there's such a range of different things you can do, and like Kate right now is, if you have a certain skill or interest or passion, we definitely love to hear that and how we can incorporate that into your volunteer experience. So yeah, so thank you so much. Thank you to Marissa for leading this. Thank you to Kate for hosting this. Thank you everyone that came. This is so awesome. I think I learned so much. I know it can be kind of daunting to use a new website, but I definitely feel a little more relaxed now. And I'm just like everyone else in the chat, I'm going to be going out there and taking some photos and uploading them myself. So yeah, a huge thank you to everyone. And I hope you guys all have a great night and enjoy your almost weekend.
Well, the volunteer
Thanks, Nicole.
orientation is on Saturday, and for someone that just asked in the chat, and I've just put a link in the chat if you would like to register now.
Right. And if anyone wants to revisit any of the information that we discussed here today, like I said before, we are recording, so we're going to upload that to both YouTube and to Facebook, and we're going to send you guys the links in, I think, either tomorrow or the next day for our YouTube, and so you'll be able to rewatch that. And if anyone needs any tips or tricks, definitely use it as a helping guide. Cool. Okay.
Cool.
Thank you guys so much. Everyone have a great night. Bye. Thank you, Kate.
Yeah,
Thank you. That was fun.